Okay. I guess we are live. It is 2 p.m. It has definitely been I'm gonna say a day. Lots to do today, lots to plan. Uh but it's Forget the Narcissist Friday. So I thought it was important and that I jump on, even though I feel kind of beat. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about something that is not discussed too much. Where narcissists actually hide out. I was thinking about that movie with the wrestler Roddy Piper. They Live. I don't know if anybody remembers that movie. I'm just running my mouth while we wait for people to join. But I don't know if people remember that movie, Roddy Piper. He was like kind of a popular wrestler in the 80s. And this movie, it's almost like the blueprint for recognizing narcissists. I know they talked about aliens in that movie, but when you think about it, they are literally everywhere. Narcissists are literally everywhere. And it's really, really difficult because we always think that it's just an interpersonal or romantic relationship. The rabbit hole actually goes a lot deeper than that. I mean, I'm talking about work. I'm talking about inside of religious institutions. Of course, we know within government, and most importantly, family. We soon find that these dynamics are every place. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in the whole emotional aspect of being in a relationship or a romantic encounter with a narcissist that we forget how deep the rabbit hole goes. But most importantly, sometimes being inside of a narcissistic romantic type relationship makes you blind to the other aspects of narcissism, because in a sense you're like one-on-one with this person, and this person is working overtime to condition you. So for some strange reason, the logic processing part of your brain doesn't say, hey, listen, my supervisor has a lot of narcissistic tendencies. Hey, thank you, precious, thank you, I appreciate you. My boss has a lot of narcissistic tendencies. Hey, this pastor or this rabbi or this imam, I don't like the way that they talk to the congregation or to the flock or to the people that's coming here to worship. It's almost like they're trying to control us. Well, what we soon find is, and thank you everybody for joining, what we soon find is just like in romantic, I hate to use that word, relationship with a narcissist, you find very similar dynamics outside in the real world. We find that wherever there is a need for control, wherever control can be gained, wherever someone with NPD can actually feel superior to others, you find narcissism. And that's really kind of crazy when you think about it. This is just one of my notes. Mental health professionals often discuss how emotionally unhealthy family systems normalize self-abandonment, silence, and chaos. Now, Dr. Ramani, who I'm actually deep diving into because I love so many of her insights, she says survivors were conditioned long before romantic relationships even began. Think about that. The condition, when you think about it, and I talk about this often, the parallel that is the narcissist versus the empath, how they're created. They're created through trauma. It's just that they exhibit different behaviors depending on the choice that they make at a very early age. Am I going to get my lick back because I got hurt and traumatized and make everybody suffer? Or am I going to try to become a better person and help people out so they don't have to experience the things that I experienced? So the conditioning for the empath to accept narcissistic behavior often begins at an early age. When we look at children, that soon become empaths, um, that are in traumatic experiences, their caregivers are just not caring. Their caregivers are probably narcissists within themselves. So that child at a very early age learns things that most children don't have to learn, because that child doesn't feel emotionally safe. So they learn how to pick up cues, from the sense of dread. I remember when I was growing up, if I heard that key coming in the door and I had been in from school for a while just by myself enjoying the peace, sometimes my nervous system would go haywire when I heard the key in the door, because that meant that my caregiver was coming in. And then soon that changes into where you become hyper aware, the tone of voice, what they say, how they're looking, sometimes down to how they're walking. And you're making these super fast decisions like, okay, your nervous system saying, okay, you're in danger, go in your room, asking you go out. So, and we also learn at a very early age when we're in these family type dynamics is that we are, I guess, burdened with everybody else's emotions. We become everyone else's emotional caretaker. And a sure sign that you were in a traumatic familial dynamic or relationship is for the fact that you literally felt as a child that you had to always keep the peace. You had not only to protect yourself, but sometimes to protect your siblings, sometimes to protect people that didn't know you. If a family member that hasn't been seen in a while comes over, you're like in panic mode, like, oh my god, they don't know what they're in for, and you find yourself interjecting, trying to help. And again, I don't think a child should be burdened with that. And when we look at the narcissistic dynamic in families, we notice things that just feel off, even for a child, even at that very early age. It feels off. We start to notice the mask, literally. We start to become aware of the mask. And I'm talking about 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, the things that children shouldn't be focused on. You're starting to understand that, hey, listen, my caregiver or my brother or my sister or my aunt is showing two different versions of themselves. When we're out in public, they're acting completely different. But when we get back home, emotional chaos is guaranteed to be, on the course for dinner tonight. So yeah, we become very early on in the game as empaths to basically be conditioned to accept this behavior. And again, we know that empaths being the number one food group for narcissists as far as romantic relationships, they kind of know this. If they picked up already that you're an empath and they jump into phase one, they kind of know that you've been preconditioned for them. Because the narcissist, again, always knowing, being aware of what they're doing and the reasons behind it. Okay, this is research, not my personal opinion. Being aware of that, they're like, okay, you're an empath, you kind of went through what I went through, so already they know your weak points. Hey, Mama J and Pamela Presley and Mimi, thank you for joining. I appreciate you guys. So they already know that you've been preconditioned or prepped, and they play off of that. They play off of that. Once you get into that situation, again, in hindsight, you don't notice this stuff until you actually begin healing. Once you get in those situations where you're saying to yourself, "Why am I over explaining this? This person is too new in my life to where I should feel that I need to go into detail about what I just said." Empaths do this because they don't want to be misunderstood, because as a child they were misunderstood, so they automatically jump into over explaining. As an empath, I mean, this is up to you. You can agree or disagree, but you'll find, like in jobs, sometimes you have that boss that no matter what you do, it's never enough. You're never going to be recognized. You're never going to get that raise. You're not going to get the accolades that you definitely deserve. You might have gotten a $500,000 contract for that company, but if you have a boss or a director that has narcissistic tendencies, you'll soon find that no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. And everything that you do will be diminished. So yeah, and thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you, Vanessa, Mustang Test, Strong, Tracy Lou, the Book of Mel. Thank you, and Capital Clark. Definitely thank you for being a long time watcher. So you're in this thing with your boss, and then you'll soon find that you really start over explaining stuff, why you did stuff, what was your thought process. What was the end result? And you're sitting up there, and thank you, Mustang Test, for the follow. I appreciate you. I'll follow you as soon as I get off of this. Um, but yeah, and you seem bewildered, but that's because you've been conditioned to be this way. You know, Cleophas William, thank you for joining. I appreciate you. You've been conditioned throughout your life, and we don't realize it. We really don't realize it. I think part of, and thank you, Capital Clark, for the likes. I don't think we really truly begin to realize what we're doing until we find ourselves in that dynamic with the one-on-one or romantic, until I can figure out a better word, relationship with a narcissist. Because what we're doing is we're making excuses for everybody else. We know something's off, but it's not close enough for us to pinpoint and recognize. In fact, 9 times out of 10, we're really not going to look too deep into it. We're really not. It's a job. If even as an empath, I was like, I'm here to go to work. I'm here to make my money. I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to go out for drinks with you. I just want to do my job and get paid. So you never look into it. And throughout my work career, even in the military, I had narcissistic. Oh, thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate you. you know, I know for a fact that, even I remember one of my chief petty officers, I'm never going to say their name, but one of my chief petty officers was actually a narcissist looking back in hindsight. There was nothing I could do while I was under that man's oversight that actually would actually say, hey, great job, Robinson. Hey, Robinson, it's time to evaluate you to see if you grow up. I never, even though there were certain cycles that I knew I was actually a 4.0 sailor, I would never get that recommendation. I would get the 3.8s. And then I was told this was the rationalization. Oh, you never want a 4.0 because where do you go from there? You can only go down. Well, you're putting me down already. So I guess what you're telling me doesn't make a difference. I think on my military jacket, it would be nice to see a couple of 4.0s, especially if I deserve them. But then again, it's the military. It's the job. It's not an adventure. I'm not going to look too deep into it. I've worked in emergency rooms, for years, and you would actually have those physicians that would power trip. Has nothing to do with you. And I used to always say to myself, oh, they had a bad day at home. But what people don't realize is once you leave the employee safety net, where 1199 kind of protects you, once you leave that safety net, you get into a dangerous zone. Thank you, Cleophas Williams, for following me. I appreciate you. You get into a danger zone. Somebody could have an argument with their wife, look at you the wrong way. Your management, I don't want you working here anymore. So again, it's that power control, and they know this. If they're over you, if they are your director, if they are your manager, if they're the freaking charge nurse for the freaking day, they know that they have that power over you. Some people actually don't use it because they don't have narcissistic tendencies. But we've all had that boss that flexes as soon as they walk in the door. That they invade your boundaries. You're talking to them, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I need a pen, and they're going in your desk. You're like, wait a second. Come on. You didn't ask me. You just went in my drawer. This is my space, and if you do say something, it's like, this is not yours. This is owned by the company. Again, you're looking at a power flex. Back to the family dynamic or the familial dynamic, you'll find that as a young growing, fledgling empath, that you not only notice inconsistencies in how people are treated within that group. If you have other brothers and sisters, you'll soon find that there's a golden child there. There's a child that can do no wrong. There's a child that's constantly rewarded. There is a child, hey, what's up, your sister Ashley? There's a child that is constantly being praised, and their other siblings are like looking around like, damn, we exist in here too. We came out of your hoo-ha too. Why are you treating us like this? What you're noticing is, see, narcissists must always be in control. So if your caregiver is the narcissist, you're going to notice these little control plays. Okay. I've actually witnessed this, where the narcissist, be it the mother or the father, will pit the siblings against each other without actually saying it. Crazy amount of praise at the dinner table for one child, even though there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 children sitting there. That doesn't matter. They're going to publicly announce that this is the golden child, which makes the other children feel a certain way. Like, are we not loved as well? Do you not care about us as well? And again, this is a lot of emotional baggage for a child, much less a fledgling empath, to have to carry, because now it's like the Hunger Games in your house. You're being pit against your brothers and your sisters, sometimes throughout the extended family. And once, just like in a romantic relationship, or soon find that once you start noticing that something is off, and maybe as a child you don't know how to keep your mouth shut and you vocalize that something is wrong, you have done the worst thing possible. You have exposed the mask. You have let those around you with these toxic, dysfunctional behaviors know that you see through it. This is how people end up becoming the black sheep of the family. It's not that they really did anything wrong. It's just that they can't be tolerated anymore because they, just like in a romantic relationship, they have the capability to dismantle the mask. I've said this in a couple of lives before. I've been in situations growing up where I never really understand. I'm talking about during my teenage years. You're hanging out in the building or you're hanging out at the park, doing things that teenagers do. And like sometimes I would see somebody's brother or sister walk by, we'd all greet them. And then, their sibling would go into this rant about this person. I can't stand them. They do this, that, and the other. And thank you, Mavis Manning, for joining. They do this. What I was witnessing and I didn't know was the smear campaign. The same thing that survivors go through in a romantic situationship. The smear campaign, because see, everybody who has dysfunctional tendencies within that family, now they're looking at this is what the black sheep of the family is. They're the truth tellers. They're the ones that see the dysfunction and have the ability to let others know that there is dysfunction. Okay, so what happened was I was actually witnessing the smear campaign at 15 years old. And sometimes I would jump in and be like, yo, ain't that your brother? How you want to talk about, your brother or your sister to us like that? We're not your family. Because when we grow up, society teaches us that family should be the most important thing in the world. But as we get older, we see sometimes that's not always a fact. Sometimes that's not always the truth, especially if you're the black sheep of the family. One of those ways that you can tell is, usually you find the black sheep of the family moves as far away as possible as soon as they're able to. They will save money from their summer jobs, from doing like odd jobs and stuff like that. Just keep the money saved. Don't tell anybody. And next thing you know, they're like, okay, I'm moving out. I'm striking out on my own. Because they want to get away from the stress. They want to get away from the tension. So that's usually the first sign. They want to get out and get as far away as possible because literally being the empath, they have been tortured most of their life. They have been, treated as an outcast most of their life. Another sure sign is that you're dealing with a toxic dynamic, or the black sheep protocol is, okay, you moved out, you're years away, you've got your hours away. You've got your own thing. You call up on holidays, say hello, happy whatever day, and hang up the phone as quickly as possible. You don't want to any longer be drawn into conversations that are based on negativity. You don't want to spend hours on the phone talking about your siblings and what they did wrong, or another family member what they did supposedly wrong. You don't want to do that. So you make those calls brief to the point. I'm out. One of the things that I've noticed, and this used to even happen to me, is when you're invited to that family gala, be it Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, whatever holiday you celebrate, family reunions, whatever, and then that dread, that feeling of, oh my freaking God, pit of your stomach. You might be married to someone, you might be in a fulfilling relationship. You don't even want to bring this person around your family. Think about that for a second. This is your family, and you've been away for years. You've been miles away, not having to deal with their BS anymore. And, here is your significant other, and you're saying to yourself, I don't want you to be exposed to this. And you're on the fence whether you're going to go or not yourself. You really don't know if you're going to take the trip, whether you've got to get on a plane or just drive for a couple of hours. Because growing up, you felt so like the outcast. And the only reason why you felt like the outcast was because there was someone in that dynamic, usually your caregiver, that exhibited so many toxic things. And once you saw it through the mask, they made it their job to punish you. They made it their job to isolate you. They made it their job to make sure that you didn't win at anything, because that changed the narrative for them. See, if you as an empath go out there and say, hey, listen, yeah, I came from all of this dysfunction, but I put that behind me, and this is what I do with my life now. This is what I do now. Your narcissistic, your toxic, narcissistic caregiver is going to do one of two things. They're going to take full credit for what you did, as if they did it, or they are going to act like you didn't do it. The same thing that's going to happen when you're in one of these romantic narcissistic relationships. You're not going to get credit for what you do, because if they give you credit, that kind of signs off on the fact that, hey, listen, this person actually did better than we thought they would do, even after all of the BS that we put them through. So that's one of those things that you have to keep in mind. Um, so let's just look at it like this. Research on childhood emotional invalidation shows long-term impacts on self-worth, boundaries, emotional regulation, attachment patterns, and like I said, people-pleasing behaviors. Um, these are all things that I truly believe. Hey, what's up, Tracy Hodge? These are one of those things that all of these things I think actually sum up the lifestyle of an empath. We attach. This is how we find it easy to attach to, the narcissist for those romantic encounters, is because, in a sense, some mental health professionals, because we see what we've been used to, what we've been conditioned to, in that narcissist, be it our mother, our father, our brother or sister, whatever, we kind of see that. And that's what we've gotten used to for most of our lives. So that within itself is an attraction. This is why I tell people part of healing is understanding yourself, not really understanding the narcissist. Once you figure out it's a disorder, you can detach from that. Once you've accepted for the fact that you're dealing with somebody that has a serious mental disorder, you can detach. You need to now focus that energy on yourself. Why did you become attracted to this person, even though every red flag that you have in your body is saying danger, Will Robinson, danger, get the hell out of Dodge? Why did you allow them to complete phase one, even though, like I said, you have seen those red flags? Thank you for the share, Mavis. I appreciate you. You know, especially when you could visualize those red flags. User 347, thank you for staying in there. You know, and that was a question that I had to ask myself. Once I understood what narcissistic abuse was, once I became well versed in, you know, understanding that this was a disorder and that this was something that I wasn't going to be able to cure. No matter how smart that I thought I was, no matter my ability to figure things out, as most empaths have done most of their lives, I had to accept the fact I can't fix this. This is what they literally call uncontrollable. So the only option I have is to save myself. You know, and part of saving yourself is understanding why, not why they did what they did. You, again, once you attach disorder to that person, you now know, but why did you accept the behavior? You know, why do you feel that? And again, this is how we can tell people are not, and I'm not trying to shame anyone, but they're not putting 100% into their healing, because these are the same people that usually get on these lives or anybody else's lives and say, why the hell do I keep on attracting these people into my life? Because you haven't done healing is not just understanding the narcissist. Yeah, in a sense, it's about understanding the patterns. In a sense, it's making you aware, but that's mostly done to stop you. That seeking of that knowledge is to stop you from rewriting the reality. But at the end of the day, healing means understanding yourself, as Carl Jung would say. You know, I'm paraphrasing here, but you know, until we understand ourselves, we will keep on repeating the same patterns. You know, and again, I say this so often, like in every freaking live. You know, um the narcissist is a pro at this. They're a pro at this, whether it's your workplace narcissist, whether it's the narcissist within your religious institution, whether it's the narcissist in your family dynamic. They didn't just start this yesterday. They didn't. This has been something that they've been doing, something that they have been honing, something that they've been experimenting on for maybe a year, and it's usually decades. You know, it's the way that you learn a new talent. Let's say you want to learn how to play the drums or play piano or play the flute. It's going to be a lot of trial and error, but if you stick to it, there's a good chance you'll get good at it. Regrettably, that's how the narcissist looks at it. Their whole life has been based on perfecting this art of manipulating people, you know, from an early age. Manipulate the shopkeep, manipulating uh, the people in their school, manipulating their teachers, manipulating their friends. This has been an all out practice session of how to manipulate people to get what they want. And the thing is, it's not even about getting something of value. It's not even about making themselves a better person. It's literally to keep the emptiness and the shame down to what they think is a manageable level where they can just say, my mask is still intact. You know, and you walk into the same dangers that you walk into with a narcissistic relationship when you expose the mask. You know, you, hey, lady trucker 44, thank you for joining. I appreciate you. You know, when you look at the mask, you know, and then you dismantle it, and until we know what we're doing, we usually talk about it. You're a narcissist, you know, this, that, and other. Well, here's the deal. They know what they are. They just don't want you to know what they are. So if you tell your boss, you know what, listen, I'm tired of this. You're a narcissist. This is a hostile work environment. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You just put yourself in a precarious position, especially if you haven't found a new job yet. Because if you do go to HR, first off, HR is narcissistic within itself. They are there not to protect you, but to protect the company, thereby another mask. Okay. And I'm quite sure why this director or manager has been in their position, their role. They've been practicing this to see what they could literally get away with. They're quite good at this. So By time you decide to go to HR, you're now over explaining, defending yourself. You're jumping through hoops, basically. And there's a good chance that you're going to be let go of, because 9 times out of 10 we do the same thing that we don't do when we're in a romantic narcissistic relationship. We don't keep notes, if even to keep our own sanity. We figure that, well, I know this conversation happened, so that's all I need to say. Well, I learned very early on, after having narcissistic bosses, that early on, it's like, what you say doesn't mean anything. What you say to me can always be misconstrued by me. That phone call that we just had could be saying, you could just walk in and say, oh no, you misunderstood me, this is what I really meant. So early in my career, I learned, these people, I didn't know that they were narcissists. These people have the potential to ruin my life. So if you said something to me via conversation or a phone call, I'm going to pop right up, send you off an email highlighting what was discussed. Thereby, if I misconstrued something, then you have all the opportunity right there to actually make sure that I understood your meaning. It creates a paper trail, which keeps me safe until I can find another job. It's the same thing with the narcissist. You'll hear a lot of us talk about, you need to start writing down these conversations. You need to keep whatever your phone does as far as notes, hit that record button. Whatever it is to keep you from saying to yourself you're being too sensitive, because that's what the narrative that the narcissist is pushing into your head. You're being too sensitive. You're being too emotional. You misunderstood me. I didn't mean it that way. But yet and still, the damage has been done. You feel the way that you do. That can't be dissolved. That can't be taken away. But the narcissists, again, they're not new to this. They know that, your emotions are going to jump in, because let's look at your emotional state. You love this person. Deep down inside, you love this person. That's why you've been trying so hard. That's why you've been trying to understand why they treat you the way that they do, because you love them. So yes, I get it. You're going to be emotional. It's just like when you're dealing with the narcissist in your family. Deep down inside, you love it. Your child, you love this person. You understand that. Hey, what's up, Luna Lou? You understand that. You're being hurt as a child, and you can't wrap your mind around it. You can't really understand it. But you know that you're hurt. And those off times that you come to your caregiver and you say, you start over explaining, I know what I did was wrong, blah, 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 boom, so forth and so on. It's just that I didn't understand why you treated me this way. Oh, well, you just saw through the mask. Just like in a romantic situationship, you're going to be punished. The narcissist is not going to have accountability for how they're making you feel. They're never going to do that. Thank you for joining April, Maine, and Jermaine and Tassie. The narcissist is never going to do that at any point. So what we do is we have to, being adults, because I can talk about how it affects us as children, so much, but being adults, we have to start caring for ourselves. Hey, what's up, Black Star Chat? Thank you for liking the live. As adults, we have to start putting ourselves first and foremost, our emotional peace first and foremost. It's kind of a non-negotiable, okay? Because we're going to keep on being hurt, because again, until you heal, these people, these people are always going to know what buttons to push. I had a job once, and my supervisor actually sat in the cubicle next to me. And again, this is in hindsight, because I didn't know what a narcissist was. In fact, I was in the midst of a narcissistic relationship while I worked this job. So a lot of things, like, kind of, I didn't pay full attention to. But I'm going to tell you something. This person, they had to know about my personal life. Every conversation, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, it's fine. I enjoyed myself. How was yours? That's how it's work. It's not an adventure. Okay, I get paid to do this. not to tell you what I did all weekend long, and that would be the next question. Oh, what did you do? Or if I walk in, one time I had a toothache and I was in so much pain, and I walked in and then, oh my God, come into the office. We need to speak. What's going on with you? I see how you look. Is everything all right? This, that, nothing. Everything is fine. I got a toothache. Are you sure? Are you sure that's what's wrong? Because it was data mining. The same thing that we go into when we deal with these demons that we allow to sleep in our bed, basically. It was pure data mining. Things that could be used against me. And there were a couple of times where, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was like, I just shut up. I'm doing my job. Took offense to it, tried to bring me into our supervisor's office to talk about it, saying that I'm not being friendly. I'm not here to be friendly. I'm here to do my job. I'm not here to make friends. If I need to make friends, I can go to the local tavern. I can go hang out at the park. I can go to the library and make friends. But this is not the place where I make friends at. This is not my first go-to make friends. I'm sorry you take it that way, but I'm really focused on my job. And I would think that that is the one thing that you want me to be focused on. That job didn't last too long. Because I found my boundaries being tested constantly. Hey, what's up, Survivor T? I see my boundaries being tested. Like I said, that's where that thing was, where they came over to talk to me, and it was like, oh, I need a pen, and just started going through my drawers. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? This is my desk. So this is what narcissists do. You'll notice that they do that in that romantic situationship. What's yours is theirs, and what's theirs is theirs. So they don't have boundaries. So many times, the last one, it's like, why are you at my desk? Guaranteed there's nothing here for you. Oh, I thought I left something on. I mean, going through my papers. I mean, literally, like they're like, we're the cops and we've got to search your desk. And I walk in on it, I'm like, what's wrong? What are you looking for? Why are you in my stuff? Oh, I was looking for something. Well, I guarantee you it's not in those papers. In fact, it's too big to be in those papers. Because they don't see boundaries. All they see is the need for control. Now, when we jump into, narcissists are everywhere. Basically, they're in plain sight. We just don't pay attention to them. When we look at within religious institutions, I don't have to go too deep into that. I really don't want to offend anybody, but, every 2 to 3 months, there's like a big story and the newspapers that speak to an abuse of power, which when you look at it, a house of worship or a place where you go to get inspiration and motivation based on your religious beliefs, there really shouldn't be a sense of control. That when you look at it, there shouldn't be a person within that dynamic that is looking to control your life. Because at the end of the day, that's not what you go there for. You go there to bolster your faith wherever that building may be. That's what you're going there for. You're not going there to be controlled, to be told what to do. I actually thank you, Kelsey Kelly, for joining. I appreciate you. I like to think that when I go to have my faith bolstered, that's all I really want. At the end of the day, we go through, the Genesis, chapter 1, it's like, choice that was given to us. Whether it turns out good or bad, it's choice. And how I choose to live my life should be, as long as I'm not hurting anyone, as long as I'm not doing anybody wrong, I should be allowed to live my life the way that I want to. I don't need you to tell me what I need to pick up from the store to put in my refrigerator, or who I should be nice to and who I shouldn't be nice to. As far as I'm concerned, that's not your job. That's not what you're sitting up there for or standing up there for. But we find that in religious institutions, I mean, in the last couple of decades, it's been crazy. You got the Vatican paying out settlements because someone took advantage of being a narcissist and decided You guys that sit in front of me every day, you're my goldfish. I control you. You will do as I say you will do, no matter what that may be. That is a narcissistic dynamic when you look at it. Hey, what's up, Moose? Thank you for joining N.O.W. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, so yeah, they are in plain sight. They are everywhere. But now here's the good part. Usually, I'll say this: the familial dynamic. You will soon find that if you're here, if you're listening, and you're actually looking to heal those wounds that you experience, that means that you're not a narcissist. See, narcissists can't reflect. They have no empathy. Most of us, believe it or not, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody. The people that I believe turned me into an empath, I actually feel sorry for because that's the empath way. I feel sorry for these people, for what they knowingly put me through. And I still adhere to the fact that I want no one else to ever have to go through it. Hey Moose, thank you for being hanging in there. And Schoolie Lefeste, thank you for joining. I appreciate you. You know, so yeah, as we feel that way, and sometimes when we're in those romantic dynamics, once we see through the mask, the narcissists will try to make us think that we are the narcissist. And I think all creators say this. If you sit up there and say to yourself, but am I a narcissist? That's usually a good vote that you're not, because you're doing the one thing that a narcissist can't do. You're reflecting. You're actually trying to take accountability if the issue that you're going through might actually be your fault. The narcissist is never going to do that. They're not built like that. They'll never be built like that. Hey, Miss T and Lady Lee, thank you for joining. And Kano Dyer, thank you for joining. So when we look at that, Dr. Armani has discussed how narcissistic personalities often seek environments rewarding image, power, and control. So sometimes we will find that they definitely seek these out as careers. I mean, we all have seen those TikToks or those YT videos or even FB where people, are caught in the act of abusing their perceived power. We see it with law enforcement, we see it with the Karens. They feel entitled to do what they want, to speak to people the way that they want. And if it's Karen, usually when the boys in blue or the boys and girls in blue show up, we see quickly how they try to manipulate the situation. We're looking at narcissism. And they don't care that you might get arrested. They're depending on the fact that they can manipulate people to do their bidding, as they've been doing for most of their life. Go sit in a family courtroom, and if you've healed, tell me how many narcissists you can spot just from their conversation, just from their back and forth with the judge. How many? Because you're allowed to do it. I think it's a lesson, especially for people that are healing, that sometimes don't want to believe that the narcissist does this on purpose. Well, this is the greatest environment in the world to see that this is cold and calculated. I have seen so many TikTok videos where people, you just like looking at the screen like, you did not just say that. Did you really expect that this person would believe and buy into what you're saying? But they're going to try anyway. The Karens are going to try anyway. I had that experience once with a Karen. I don't know what was wrong with this lady, but at the time it was actually my narcissistic abuser. They were sitting next to me. We went to Atlantic City for the weekend, and of course we took the bus. It was easier than driving down there. Didn't have to worry about parking, none of that stuff. So we took the bus. So we're on our way back. Of course, tired, because if you're in Atlantic City, you know what you're doing the whole time you're there for the whole weekend. So we're on our way back, and I've got my laptop in my lap, and she's at the window seat, and she's passed out. So I'm on my laptop doing my stuff. I'm paying no attention to anybody. I looked up, looked out the window, and went back to my laptop. All I heard was this lady saying, "Hey, you better stop looking at me." I'm kind of ignoring it. What the hell is wrong with you? And I'm typing, and then they keep on going on. And then I look up. Yeah, I saw you looking at me, glaring at me. What do you want from me? I was lady, I have no clue what you're talking about. Went back to typing. What happened was, due to all the commotion, she woke up, the person next to me, and turned around and leaned out the aisle. See, the person didn't know that there was somebody next to me. They shut up immediately because they knew that whatever they had in mind wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work. However, I am going to tell you one thing. When she started yelling and I looked out the window, and I think I was like 3 seats away from the bus driver looked at me with this, like, you're kind of suspect right now. So if I didn't have this person sitting next to me, what could have happened to me? Because my gut feeling was everybody was going to believe her, no matter what she said. And again, that when you're being manipulated, that's a very scary feeling to find yourself in. And we find that in all of these dynamics, that that reactive abuse. Peace be still. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you. That reactive abuse where people are not going to understand. Well, damn. And yeah, I'm a human being. I'm just tired of hearing it. So yeah, I'm shouting and yelling at the top of my lungs. But you're being manipulated at that point. They're getting not only a reaction out of you, but the narrative that they've been painting about you probably since right after the love bombing stage is now being proven true when you think about it, that you're unstable. That this person has been doing overtime trying to deal with this, when it's not the truth. You're the one that's the victim. But the narcissist, just like in the family dynamic, just like in divorce dynamic, just like in the religious leader within your religious institution, they're always going to protect the mask. They're always, a lot of cases that the Vatican is settling now happen, they're going back 2 decades. Because even though these people knew what they did was wrong, they knew it was an abuse of power. They knew that they shouldn't have done it. Hey, Moni, thank you. They knew that they shouldn't have done it. They did it anyway, and then they lied about it. Because they were under the impression, I can manipulate the system. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but some days I would just look at those First Amendment auditor things that they do on TikTok, where they actually catch the popo breaking the law. They really are. They're going above and beyond. They're infringing on people's rights. Sometimes they're taking out the nightstick and going like this, or nowadays they just tase you repeatedly, hoping that you don't have a heart condition, and then they go inside their car. They tell their partners, cam is still on, tell their partners a completely different story, change the story in their report. They do all of this stuff. And I think the reason why I watch it is because I'm watching narcissism in its most natural form, the sense of power and control over another person, the entitlement to do what you want, of course, the lack of empathy, and, the feeling of, superiority and authority. So I'm like looking at these videos, and they have no qualms of lying, knowing that in their position, in their job, they have the potential to mess up somebody's life. My first book that I had published in 2009 was called The Ghetto Survival Guide for Blacks and Latinos. And that was that we had just come through the whole Giuliani, stop and frisk thing. The cops could do, basically, they were cowboys. They could do whatever they want. Your constitutional rights didn't matter. And one of the things is that you became addicted to carrying your ID around with you. If you were smart, okay? Because what would happen is in New York, and anybody from New York can attest to this, if you got stopped based on anything, you blinked your eyes too fast, therefore you look suspicious. If you got stopped for anything and you could not produce ID for whatever reason, that gave them to take away 72 hours of your existence on this planet. And I had to outline in the book how important 72 hours is. You've got one phone call, okay? 72 hours, you have a lot of choices. Who are you going to call first? Are you going to call somebody in your family? Are you going to call your job? Are you going to call your school? Because you've got a exam the next day. So you've got a lot of variables that you have to sift through. But essentially, what I had to put in the book is 72 hours could completely destroy your life. And these people knew this. I get it. It's a job. It's not an adventure. But at some point, you have to have empathy no matter what uniform you put on at the beginning of your day. You still have to remember that you're part of the human race. You have to understand that, hey, listen, this person is saying my ID is right upstairs. Let me just yell upstairs and someone will bring it down. And no, you're going. You just destroyed somebody's life just to flex your power. When the obvious to me, being a human being, being an empath, the obvious thing to do is, okay, you've got 5 minutes. Holler up, or we'll walk you up there. You better have ID in there. One of the things I used to fix computers a lot, and this actually happened to me at one point. I had a little side hustle. I fixed computers. Grew up in the projects. Great place to have that side hustle. So I remember I had to run to the store to pick up something for my sons. My sons were younger then. So I had to run to the store. And I actually literally had the screwdriver in my back pocket. The screwdriver that I use to go into cases because I'm fixing computers. I got like 3 computers on the carpet at home, And I remember a cop car pulled up to the store and my heart went in my mouth. Because in New York, those are burglary tools. Okay? Screwdrivers and stuff like that, you walking on the street, that's a burglary tool. And I was scared ishless, because if they stop me, if they question me, if they pat me down and they see this screwdriver, I have just given them the right to dismantle my life for the next 72 hours or until I see a judge, which could take, I think as a young man, I got in trouble. I spent 2 weeks on Rikers Island before I saw a judge. So these are the things that happen, and I don't want to get into my personal life like that because we're here to talk about the narcissist. But this is what the abuse of power does. This is what the narcissist does, even in those relationships, be it family, religious institution, or at your job. If your boss feels that they are losing control over you and that makes them feel a certain way, trust and believe they're going to try to punish you because that's what the narcissist does. Thank you, Bill, for being a long time watcher. I appreciate it. And Harry Debson Jr., thank you for joining. I thank you. This is what we don't tend to look at. Us going around. This is why being real about how people make you feel is why healing is so important. I'm going to put up the thing for my courses because TikTok keeps on sending me notices to put this up. But I'm going to tell you, if you look at my bio, I have a lot of free resources. The course is like, that's just my ish. That's what I do. And I do run a nonprofit and it does, help keep the nonprofit afloat. It allows me the time to do stuff like this sometimes twice a day. It gives me the time to make sure that the Now movement is being pushed forward. With that being said, a lot of people don't know what the Now movement is because they've never been to, the blueprint up in my bio. Now stands for no other way but forward. And this is that leg of the mission when it comes to narcissistic abuse, to help people understand that you can't keep on living in the rearview mirror. It happened to you. I know. I've experienced it. Many of the people that we have up on this panel have experienced it. I'm not trying to take away from that. I'm not trying to tell you you're too sensitive. And I'm not trying to, give you a whole bunch of fluff or motivational speak. I want you to get better, because I think many people, once they come out of the fog, they realize that they're not at 100, 100, 100. They're not. There are so many broken pieces. There's so much dust and debris left after the narcissist leaves. And then on top of that, they're running around, I'm living my best life now without this person, even though you spent years or decades with them. So that's a lot to process. And I get it. So yeah, I create free audiobooks, I create papers and docs, I create courses to help people make sense of this confusion, if possible. To tell people that I think I just put up a video today that says for empaths, healing is a non-negotiable. Healing from anything should be a non-negotiable, because anything you acquire the word healing for means that you really don't want it. Nobody, uses healing in the way of, I got this thing right now. I don't want to heal from it. I'm going to carry this around. This is my new status symbol. This is my new badge. Nobody wakes up and thinks like that. And narcissistic abuse is the same thing. Nobody wants to feel that they have to carry this around. And plus, the way that I really and sincerely look at this is, as an empath, if you don't heal, not only are you, and I hate to use this term, not only are you screwing yourself over, but you're screwing over the rest of the world. Empaths, deep down inside, we know that we have a purpose, and we know we are driven at some stage to live in that purpose. If only to honor our higher power or the universe or whatever you believe in. Those mornings that you wake up in the middle of the night, look up at the ceiling and say, what am I really here for? I know damn good and well it's not to get up in 2 more hours, get dressed, and go to this damn job again. I think I'm built for something more important. That's you starting to awaken. And a lot of people get on these lives now and they say, we were meant to go through this. In a sense, I kind of agree, but in a sense, I don't think that anybody votes to go through a complete and utter issue, for years and decades of their lives. But I get it. I do get it. Sometimes our higher power will throw us these what seems to be impossible tests to actually weed out the things that need to be weeded out, so that we can proceed forward with our mission. I kind of look at it as almost like a military initiative. I think I spoke about this last night. When you go to boot camp, I think the first few weeks, well, the first 2 weeks, we think we're just dealing with people's egos. We just dealing. It makes no sense to us. Why do we have to do this? Why are they throwing garbage cans down the freaking barracks at 5 o'clock in the morning? Why do I have to have my hair cut off? Why do I have to walk this way? Why do I have to even listen to this? I don't know who the hell this person is. Why am I being forced to listen to this person? Well, you soon find out, hopefully before you graduate from boot camp, is that everything kind of serves a purpose to make you more resilient, to make you stronger, to make you more able to think logically. And most importantly, to help you understand that, yes, you are very important to the mission, but the mission is the most important thing. And sometimes I think our higher power will do stuff like this. I think sometimes the narcissist is our boot camp. And the reason why I think that is because, like I said, I went through 2 of these previously, and I just didn't latch on. I didn't get it, And I think when I got to the third one, it was like the final exam. And it literally left me to the point, I don't know where the hell they went to Narcissism 101 school, but they were good at what they did. I can admit that now because I'm healed. They were very good at what they did, to the point that I felt that I was going to stay broken. But there's the thing with tests. Sometimes if you've been in college or even high school, you have that test that you feel you didn't study enough for. For some strange reason, you get that lightning bolt jolt, and you're like, but I know the answer to that. And you pass up your test paper, and you're sitting there saying, oh my God, I failed. I'm going to have to repeat this course or repeat this grade over. And what happens is, like a week later, you get your results and you're like, oh my God, I passed. How did that happen? I think that's the same thing with the narcissist. I think we find ourselves at that stage, like me, number three, where we don't think that we're going to pass. We don't think that we're going to overcome this. And we actually do. That's why I'm here right now. That's why Church of Real Talk has a new mission for trauma healing. That's why the Now movement and all the way before it actually exists, because I passed the test. I found parts in me that I didn't know existed, parts that I had buried for years, parts that actually made me more able to move forward with my purpose. I truly feel that this is my purpose. Yes, it might change later on. It might morph a little bit. It might grow even more. I think it's growing right now. So yes, sometimes our higher powers, I just wish they would have gave me a different test. But sometimes this is to make us more resilient, to make you the best soldier possible for your higher power. And sometimes you've got to take out those things that you don't want to admit are in you that are actually holding you back. I mean, isn't that what they do in boot camp? They uncover stuff that you never knew existed. The first time you got to do PT, you're like, wow, I didn't know I could run that fast. I didn't know that I could do that many push-ups. I I didn't know that I would understand how I grew up in the city. I reading the compass. What? You know what I'm saying? It's like, really? Really? I can do that? Things that you didn't, gifts that you have inside you, talents that you have inside of you, you're not going to realize it until you are challenged. And this, my good friend, might actually be your challenge. You've just got to decide at some point that, okay, this is where I'm at. Now, what the hell am I going to do about it? Choice. We're back at the front of the ranch. Choice. As an empath, you have been figuring out stuff not only for yourself, but for a ton of other people that probably didn't deserve you using the brain power. From my old narcissists, I used to figure out stuff for them constantly. Constantly. They either wouldn't listen or they would tell me to their face, oh, by the way, somebody told me to do this and I didn't remember, but they told me before you. Again, just to throw the dart. It's like I don't really care. You know, but you'll find that once you decide that you're going to heal, a couple of important things happen. You'll learn if you're dealing with the dynamic that is family based, where you're the black sheep of the family, you're going to learn how to deal with those situations. Thank you for sharing this. I appreciate you, MK Animal One. You're going to learn how to deal with your family, and there is a way to deal with it. You're not trapped. You're not handcuffed to the fact that they have your same last name. You're not handcuffed to that. So stop thinking that you're trapped. There's ways to deal with it. If it's your job, hey, here's the deal. I had a job and I want to tell you, I don't watch TV, but there was one point in my life that I had a job that I literally would sit on the edge of the bed, turn on the TV, and watch the news. And I definitely don't watch the news. I hate the news. And I would just sit there. And I reprimanded so many times for being late because I didn't want to go. I did not want to go. Thank you for keeping up with me, lady. I appreciate you. I didn't want to go there. I would find any excuse. Sometimes I would get off of the train and think about, can I call in sick? I'm supposed to be there in 10 minutes. Can I call there sick? And I'm off of the train, before my stop because I don't want to go. And then I had to realize, well, listen, you don't want to go because you don't like it there. See, your nervous system never really lies to you. I didn't like it there at all. I wasn't happy. There was actually a stage in my life during that job that at the end of my day, I would get off of the train, walk a block backwards away from my home where I lived at. I would walk a block backwards, stop at the package store. And I'm talking about Monday through Friday. Stop by the package store, pick up something. Didn't even eat dinner when I got home. That's what I did. And I had to understand that this job is destroying you. It's destroying you. And it's not like you're not talented. It's not like, thank you for the likes, Dawn Marie. It's not like you can't do something else. But I had to decide to get off of my ass and decide that I'm not doing this anymore. And I had to plot it out. Sometimes that is the best choice. Sometimes even in narcissistic dynamics, we become so used to it, it becomes the status quo. Thank you for reposting it. It becomes it becomes such the status quo, it becomes our norm that we can't see the trees past the forest. And it's the same thing with dealing with the narcissist. We have been stuck with this person. We know that they're toxic. We know that we're miserable there. We know that we're not happy. We know that we're the only glue holding up the relationship. But you know what? That's what we're used to. And Dawn Marie says facts, because it is. We get so used to the chaos that we don't want to leave. And sometimes, I hate to tell you this, but this is why dedicating yourself to healing is so important, is sometimes we leave and then we come back because we miss the chaos. I'd like to say at this stage, who the hell does this? But many people do. Because they can't deal with the silence. They can't deal with not having those circle jerk conversations. They can't deal with explaining plain, simple, understood by third graders across the world concepts to a full adult that just refuses to get it. We get used to the fact that no matter what we accomplish in our life, that we can't share it with this person because deep down inside we know that this person is jealous of us. They hate us. They hate who we are. But we've been living in this hate for so long, for so very freaking long, that we can't see a way out of it. When you are in a narcissistic relationship and you refuse to heal, I'm going to tell you exactly what happens, and hopefully this helps you. Hopefully that you understand this. You literally start eroding who you are. The person who you are, the person that you were before you met this person, the person that you were before you signed off on phase one, being the love bomb. That person. And instead of crying for the fact that you feel guilty for abandoning this person that treated you like a piece of ish the whole time they were in your presence, why don't you shed some of those tears for the person that you lost? The person that you know that if you do get out of this situation, be it family, job, your religious institution, or this person that you call your mate, you've got a lot of work to do. You know that you've got so much on your plate. While they're posting glow ups on social media, you're the one stuck picking up the pieces. You're the one that has to reclaim their identity. You're the one sitting on the fence saying, I spent 7, 10, 20 years with this person. Oh my freaking God, I need to see a therapist. I need freaking help right now. While they're sitting up there posting PDAs of the new supply, while they're telling the new supply what a horrible person you are, what are they doing? Is there any remorse for destroying a relationship that you tried to hold together with your very soul? With your very soul. You get up in the morning, you're like, what chaos are they going to bring? And how can I make them understand that I really care about them? They get up in the morning and saying, you know what? The emptiness inside of me is kind of at an all-time high. How can I make their life miserable today? Two different mindsets, two different beginnings to the day. Dawn Marie says you are spot on. They follow the cycle. And we being the caregivers, thank you, Dawn Marie, we being the caregivers, we being the ones that, like children, because we didn't get it when we were dealing with our caregivers. Our caregivers hurt us to the stage that we had to make a choice to say to ourselves, hey, listen, I'm little, but I don't think anybody should go through this. And we carry that thought throughout our lives. And when we see the narcissist, deep down inside, we know that they're broken. When they're telling us the victim stories, we know that they're broken. When they're love bombing us and telling us that we're their soulmate, they've been looking for us, because in the very beginning, for a microsecond, I think astrophysicists call it Planck time. For that moment in time, they literally go from empath to empath because they got high hopes. Again, I keep on telling people they know exactly what they're doing to you. They need an empath real quick and real fast, because during that moment of plank time, that's when they think that you can save them. You can fix them. You can help them relieve themselves of this emptiness. You can maybe one day help them remove the mask and be like the rest of society. Maybe they don't have to walk around thinking that everybody is jealous of them. Maybe they don't have to be jealous of everybody. Maybe they don't have to live their life thinking that they need to beat everybody to the punch, because deep down inside in their rabbit ass mind, they think that everybody thinks like them. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? You've got to. Thank you, Moni. Thank you for the share. You've got to understand your greatness. They weren't attracted to you because you were weak. Weak is for the intermittent supply. Weak is for the person that is only going to give them admiration based on access of them. See, that's the weak person. See, they're not going to go through what the empath goes through. Okay? That's what monkey branching is. Let me keep on going from tree to tree until, oh, there goes the empath. This is what they need to survive. Think about that. So while you're sitting up there, yesterday we talked about why you don't creep their social media. While you're sitting up there looking at the new supply going, what do they have that I don't have? Is the narcissist going to give them everything that they refuse to give me? Did the narcissist finally become a human being? No. Why would you think that? Because a real human being wouldn't treat you the way that they did after you said that you loved them. Once they figured out that phase one actually worked. A real human being wouldn't use psychological tricks to manipulate, gaslight you, and pull the rug from up under you. And then another day say, you know what, I really love you. That's not a regular human being. Always think disorder. Always think disorder. I can't even say their names, but I had a conversation, and this little person asked me, do you hate X and X? What the person is. And I'm like, why would you think that? Then I figured it out. That's the smear campaign. Not knowing that the narcissist is the one that hates this person. The narcissist can't stand this person. I've got receipts that show the narcissist cannot stand this person. But this is what they do. This is what they do. The smear campaign is dependent on making them look like the bad guy. I mean, the good guy, and making you look like the bad guy. We'll always remember the smear campaign is 75% smearing your name and 25% protecting the mask. So while this little person is saying this, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get drawn into this. I just said, you know what? I don't have time to really hate anybody anymore. Yes, Dawn Marie hit it right in the nose. The new supply is the new victim. If you've seen the pattern that the narcissist has showed you during this situationship, and now you know that this was all an illusion, at what point do you think that they're going to change? And in fact, at one point, weren't you the new supply? What did they do for you? They gave you a bunch of victim stories. You found out later that they still didn't leave the other person. Oh, it's always that way. They're single until they feel that they got you hooked or close to being hooked. And then they tell you there's somebody else. Can't take the chance that you're going to be one of those empaths that have values and say, well, why don't you take care of that situation first and then we can continue on. They got to make sure of that. So you always find out later that there's somebody else in the wings. You are the one that is being groomed to find out if you're an empath or not, to find out if you can replace the old supply. That soon is going to be triangulated against you. So why do you think that changes? Why do you think that they're going to become a different person overnight? Because how long did they spend with you? Did they become different? Did they become everything that you hoped that they would become? Did they become someone that you felt proud to say, because near the end, you didn't even want to be near them? So near the end, were you proud to feel like, that's my boo, with a smile on your face? Yeah, we're in a relationship. Because that's how you felt. And Dawn says they not only ruin your life, but your children's lives and your family. Yes, they do. Again, we look at a disorder. Even in your relationship, because they tell us, who did they really care about? Honestly, that you could tell, just like with other human beings, oh, this person is really important to them in their life. Who? Who has the narcissist shown you that they have the capability to care about another person beyond the transaction? See, there has to be something in it for the narcissist for them to put on the super friendly, I'm a really good person mask. There has to be something in it for them. So who do they care about again? Because if you think you're in a narcissistic relationship, I'm going to vote that you found out they didn't even care about you. And you're the one that said almost on a daily basis how much you love them. You're the one that came to them and said, hey, listen, we need to discuss this. Oh, here you go again. Now we got to discuss stuff. Oh my God, you are so sensitive. Oh my goodness, you're so emotional. What's wrong? What's happening? Okay, let me guess. It's all my fault. Have we not heard those conversations? Have we not taken part in those shows where you just be like, I can't do this today, and then you do the most craziest thing in the world, because once they figure in that you threw in the towel, now they're going to keep at it. Now they're going to press your buttons. And what do you start doing? Like I used to say in mine, like a big freaking fat dummy, you apologize. So again, someone remind me how this person has the capability to care for another human being. They don't even care about themselves. So at what point do we all vote that there's a chance? There's a chance that the new supplier is getting all that you begged for. That there's a chance that they now understand third grade concepts. Okay, third grade concepts as a full adult. Now they understand it with this person. What makes you think that? What makes you think that they're going out of their way to support and now have a fulfilling relationship? They walked out the door and acted like you didn't exist. So what are you basing this capability on? Honestly? And Dawn Marie says, yes, they hate us because we have a light. We have something. I think in all my narcissistic relationships, that became that's why I said, because the hate became so tangible. It wasn't just the darks. It wasn't just the underhanded comments. It wasn't just the complete and utter lack of support for anything that I embarked on. It wasn't that. It wasn't even the getting in the way of things that I was building. None of that. None of that. It was literally the fact that I could feel that this person hated me. And I would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, tap him on the shoulder, and I'm like, I gotta ask you, why do you hate me so much? No, seriously, we need to talk about this. Why do you hate me so much? All I do is try to help you. All I do is use everything within my ability to uplift you. But I can sense that you hate me. Why? If you just tell me, I'll understand. You know, we get to the point that once again we erode ourselves for this person, our very being, the person that we are, our capabilities, our purpose, our future for this person. We put everything that is us on the back burner for this person. And once we get out, once we see it was all an illusion, we kind of kick ourselves and we say, why? Why the hell did I do that? Why? And then the stupidity kicks in. But maybe they understand now what I've been saying all this time. Go look at those glow ups and tell me that they understand. Go. Today has been heavy. Guess you was right. Oh, thank you. But yeah, some days are heavy. This is not something that I kind of look at this as an AA type situation where you have to go to the meetings like basically for the rest of your life, and there's nothing wrong with it, you know. But people have to realize that you became addicted to this person. You know, you did, and thank you, Keoli, for the gifts, Chloe, for the gifts. Thank you. We soon find that even though we know that this person meant us harm, we became addicted to them. We became addicted to those dopamine rushes. I mean, basically, what it is the intermittent conditioning, where they ignore us, they treat us like ish, they disappear, they act like we don't exist, and then all of a sudden they come up out the blue and give you a hug, and then thank you for not calling. Thank you for not calling, Chloe. But we know what happened, But then, oh, thank you. I'm glad I could be again. We all serve a purpose. We all serve a purpose. But you popped up on my FYP. That's why she didn't call. So that's awesome. That is awesome. That makes me feel as if I'm living within my purpose. You know. So we look at how we understand how we felt, but then we start rewriting history, and then we feel the urge to go back to them. And you know what? It's not even them doing the Hoover sometimes. It's just our nervous system saying, this peace stuff is really overrated. I kind of miss walking on eggshells. And remember, there was dopamine in the mix. So literally, you become a junkie to this person. And again, it's not like they did it on purpose. It was very cold. It was very, very calculated. It was. There was nothing left to chance. Like I said, once they locked in phase one, the love bombing, once you started to believe that you found the one that you've been looking for, within a week, you're getting your first dose of intermittent reinforcement. Yes, Dawn Marie says very so cruel and calculated. And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. That was the reason for yesterday's live. Stop looking at their social media. The glow ups that they show with the new supply is the glow ups that they showed with you when you were the new supply. It doesn't change, and they don't change. They don't change. It's their way of triangulating people. It's their way of staying in control of the narrative, and in a strange and sick way, they're hoping that you're going to go creep their social media. They're hoping that you're going to call back, because all they're going to do is they're going to turn the knife a little bit deeper down your back, okay? And then what they're going to do is they're going to tell everybody that will listen, that you are unstable. See, this is the proof. Look, they called me. They just don't know how to let go. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Oh my God. Chloe said the intimacy was his weapon. He used it to keep it against. Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you something, and this is the last point that I'm going to make. Again, we're dealing with a disorder. Never look at intimacy as anything more but a transaction or a weapon. Okay. A narcissist, this is not me, this is research. This is not me. A narcissist does not look at intimacy the same way that normal, non freaking disorder having people do. It is a transaction. That's all it is. It's a transaction. You're going to validate me. You're going to put me on the pedestal. That's all you want. Take it. Doesn't matter to me. You fed me what I needed. It's literally, it is spiritual. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know, it is literally a transaction. It has the same emotional gravity as walking into Target, picking up something off the shelf, paying for it, and going home. You gave Target your money to get said thing, transaction over. You go home with it. And that's the same thing the narcissists want. They want validation. And don't feel sorry for the new supply because the old supply didn't feel sorry about you. You've got to focus on yourself. You have to focus on healing. And just like in the beginning with you, okay, you hated the old supply because they hurt your soulmate. Or at least you think they did. At least you believe that the reason why this person in front of you is broken is because of the last person. They're telling the new person the same story about you. The same things you heard. Oh, I tried. Oh my God, they just became so unstable and unhinged. Oh my goodness, you don't know. I mean, they would just yell at me out the blue. Oh my freaking God, I had to call the police on them so many times because I was fearful for my life. Really? Really? So again, this is why you need to not focus on anything whatsoever that the narcissist is doing and working on yourself. The crazy part, Chloe says, the crazy part is that the new person is the same person he has had. They were married. Yeah, that's called the Hoover. They're back. That was a safe bet for the narcissist. Never forget, they think you're their pet goldfish. They can come by that tank and feed you whenever they want. They don't care. It's a transaction. It's a transaction. And who pets a goldfish? Nobody cares. It's just a responsibility that's yours. Narcs turn everyone against everyone with triangulation. Yes, because it protects their mass. Very good observation, Don Marie. It protects their mass. See, if everybody is fighting amongst themselves, nobody's paying attention to them whatsoever at all. Who cares what the hell they're doing? Right now, I'm mad at this person, and this person is mad at me, and the person back there is mad at everybody, and nobody's going to take the time to see who the puppet master is. Who's the person pulling all the strings? Think about it. Think about it. Nobody's paying attention. Again, half of, it's always, like I said, the smear campaign is 70-25. 70%, 75-25. 75% to dismantle your reputation, your name, the person that you are, and quietly and quickly erode at your identity, because that's what makes you feel. But everything else they do, it's like the reverse. It's like 75% the mask and 25% everything else. The mask becomes, once again, the most important thing in their life. You, they hate, so they've got to break you, and they have to visibly be able to see that they have broken you. That's why I say you don't need to look at their page. Trust me, they're watching everything you do. Everything that you do, they are watching. Not because they care. Not because they've seen the error in their ways. Not because they're remorseful of how they treated you. They do this. They do this to make sure that the job was completed. Remember, if you pick yourself back up, if you heal, if you go back to being the version of yourself that was always in you, if you stop worrying about them, you've won. You've won. They will go into a narcissistic injury / mortification / collapse because you have actually taken the strip that they ripped in their head for you, you pulled it out their brain, ripped it up, and threw it in their face. Go screw yourself. I have no time. But you've got to mean it. When I do this, I tell people this constantly. I don't do this to smear my narcissistic abusers. I can care less about them. This is about the now movement. This is about thinking no other way but forward. That's the dart that you throw. while you're healing proudly, and people are watching you, and people going to report back. Oh, boo boo, what you did to him or her, it ain't working. They doing. I didn't think they had that in them. That's that's how you get your lick back. That's how you get your revenge. That's how you initiate karma against the narcissist. Like I said, I got to get off of here, but I'm going to tell you guys, okay? Here's the deal, people, okay? I have free resources in my bio. Please use them. It doesn't matter to me, take as much as you want, as much as you need. I do have courses, they are in the bio. However, TikTok seems to want me to do this every once in a while because they will remind me. So I do have courses. Break the trauma bond in 7 steps. That's why I've been talking about this, is because this is the course. If you follow it, it is the 7 uh, I guess the 7 ingredients that you really need to completely break free. It says 7 steps. It doesn't say 7 days. It's not 7 days. It's 7 steps. Okay. Healing is dependent on the person and their need to ensure that they heal. So yeah, look at that stuff again. It's in my bio. Um, Use it, make avail of it. I'll be back tonight at 8, and we're going to continue this conversation. But remember, they are everywhere, literally. I love all you guys. Thank you guys for joining. I want you to have a great day. Hopefully, I'll see you at 8 p.m. And stay powerful, keep healing. The reason why I do everything that I do, love you guys. And it's going to stop.